Hello everyone, I'm Beastly Eel, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the latest episode of My Adventures with Superman. So this is aka episode 3, Full Metal Scientist, almost said Alchemist. So in this episode, we get to see the that Superman's kind of stretched thin. He's having a real tough time being Clark and Superman, mostly due to the fact of it's a lot of pressure. He's got a lot of stuff that he's got to do, plus he's got to save the world as well. So he's struggling. And it gets to the point where Lois's dad, who, by the way, is the worst house guest ever. I mean, ever. He's not cleaning up after himself, and he's basically just wasting. He's basically a waste of space at this moment in time. So when he talks to Clark and is basically called him a flake, that he's never on time for anything and he's late for everything and he'll never. That's literally the same thing. I apologize, but he'll never be able to do anything because he's basically a flake. And so he kind of really resonates with that throughout the entire episode. Um, During this whole thing, we have um, Johnny um, with Firebird, and he's got one of his his interns wanting to do a droid or like a flying drone, sorry, with a camera on it to really get better camera angles and basically be the news in the sky. And he thought it was stupid and doesn't want to do it. He basically was stating that he's the boss, he's in charge, he gets to make all the decisions, and basically going through that piece of that. And really hurts the person's feelings and everything else. During this whole thing, she sends an anonymous message to Johnny, along with who we find out later is her uncle, but we'll talk about that in a minute, about their killer robots in Metropolis and that nobody's doing anything. So apparently, what's happening is there's this new tech company that's rising through the ranks, and they've created basically a renewable energy source, an arc reactor, and it's going to make it's clean energy. It's going to be the best thing ever, and nothing bad's going to happen. Well, apparently, there were two scientists that were the lead of it. Dr. Stone, which is going to, or is the potential of being Cyborg's father, and then Dr. Ives, I believe is his name. Now I'm second guessing it. But anyway, he is the character that turns into Steel in the comics. So we have both these doctors and scientists, engineers, whatever you want to call them, really focusing on this arc reactor, on clean energy and everything else. And in fact, the man who becomes Steel is actually the head scientist and basically the face of the company. He's the PR person. He's really going with the people and everything else. Well, all of a sudden we notice that recently, for whatever the reason, he's not being part of the promotion anymore. He's not part of PR anymore, and it's the CEO. And the people really have a real tough question with it, and that's when we first get the instance of Lois Lane and Vicky Vale having a little bit of a rivalry. Um, Vicky Vale is from the Gotham Gazette. I know her more from Batman and all that stuff, but you get my point I'm making. So we have that going on, and apparently he doesn't want to talk about it, and as the CEO leaves. So Lois and um, Vicky Vale kind of have a rivalry going to see who can get the story first. So they kind of split off and do their own thing. They kind of figure out that there was some sort of explosion that happened inside of the facility, but they don't know what, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. During all of this, Superman saves Dr. Stone, um, who then has to try to save other people in the building because his building is on fire. And that's when Livewire comes out and basically says, "Oh, it's you've got so lucky that your child wasn't there, your daughter, because imagine if she was there. Wonder what would happen there." And that's when he shows her a message on his phone or shows something on his phone. We don't get to see what it was, but he deleted all the contents of it. And she said, "That was very good of you." And then she leaves. So apparently, during all of this, both him and the doctor that turns into Steel really figure out what was happening, and apparently that the arc reactor was, although it was clean energy, it was not able to work simultaneously with other arc reactors. It would absorb each other's energy and become unstable and explode. And they explained that to the CEO, who refused to listen, basically. And that's when Superman, Johnny, um, make it to where Dr. Stone is. I'm not Dr. Stone, sorry, where Steel is, and or the man who will become Steel. He shows him the video and everything else, and how the CEO doesn't care, and how the arc reactor is basically going to explode, and that he's the only one with evidence left. And that's when Livewire comes in, and her and Superman fight. He absorbs, so he gets this new power where he's able to absorb the electricity from Livewire and shoot it back at her. She then realizes she's going to be outmatched by Superman. She blows up the computers that has all of his data on it and then leaves. He then realizes that that was his only that was the only evidence left that was to show how bad this arc reactor is going to be that will cause the destruction of Metropolis. So that's when the CEO decides to turn it on along with his robots, um, to defend the city or defend the arc reactor, really. So Superman and the Doctor, he flies the Doctor over with him. He tries to fight the robots. They are kind of overtaking him. However, he is doing damage, but they are very powerful, and they look like they were using Kryptonian tech, because it looks like the robots we see, from the Kryptonian ships. Obviously modified, but you get my point. So they begin to fight him, and he's having a tough time beating them. And that's when the Doctor comes out as quite literally Steel. He has the exosuit with his hammer, and he starts smashing through all the robots. The robots that are super close to the arc reactor begin to have their reactors pop out and go into the main reactor, and it starts to make things unstable. That's when Superman goes up there and uses his new power to contain the energy, although it is not easy for him to do so. While he's doing that, Steel is on the bottom, who is now smashing through the arc reactor pillars to try to shut it down. There's obviously a fight that ensues. They have to use certain devices to kind of help out. His niece, who is part of Firebird, uses her drone with the confetti cannon to kind of mess with the robots, and he's able to smash the final pillar that causes the reactor to basically dissipate, and Superman kind of gets shot back, but basically, overall, the world is saved, or at least Metropolis is saved. So with all this, the CEO is arrested. Everyone's kind of realizing what's going on. We have Lois Lane beating Vicky Vale to the punch, because Vicky was like, "Well, I already submitted my story to my editor, and it's going to be up tomorrow." And Lois is like, "Oh, well, I was editing this whole time, and I posted it on the website, and it's already up, ready to go." So she got the story before Vicky Vale, and Vicky Vale offers her a job in Gotham, and Superman and her were not able to talk about it, but that's going to be a huge, hefty conversation that they have to have later. That being said, Superman writes his article, which realizes that that Superman is not just one person to save the entire city, that it was actually Dr. Ives, or I believe that's his name, but Steel was the real hero, and that without him, Superman would not have been able to do this alone, and the Metropolis would have exploded. And it was because of that that we need to really start thinking of being our own heroes and really trying to work on helping everyone we can. So during all that, we have that happening. And then we have Johnny realizing like he's got to be a different type of boss. He's got to really boost up his employees slash interns, because without them, he's nothing. And he really needs them more. And I think he's realizing that he's not a dictator. He was able to be a dictator when it was just by himself because he just did whatever he wanted. He can't do that anymore. He's got too many people under him that really need to be told what to do, but also do their own thing and kind of be their own person. And then we have um, Steele getting fired from the company because Lex bought the company and is now calling it LexCorp, and basically tells him to get rid of the exosuit because it's his property now, and he would hate to have the authorities arrest a real hero in Metropolis. So the episode ends with him and Waller in the basement of the facility with all the robots, which I'm assuming is to get ready to kind of make sure that they become stable and really work on trying to beating Superman with him. So that was the end of the episode. So there's a lot of things to unpack. So Superman wants to get his cousin because he realizes he needs help. We have Lois, who's really contemplating leaving Metropolis and going to Gotham to really get a better handle on her reporting career, news reporting career. Um, and then we have Johnny, who's really focusing on realizing what it takes to be a boss and how he really has to lift people up, not just knock them down. Then we have um, Task Force X that's taking over new technology to most likely potentially take out Superman. And we have all this going on. Plus, we know in the future there's going to be a talk with Lois and Clark that is not going to go well because Lois is going to be talking about leaving and Clark is going to be talking about finding another Kryptonian, and it's not going to go well. I think it's going to really damage their relationship. And then we obviously know Task Force X is going to be coming, causing a lot of damage at some point as well. I also think we're probably going to see the potential of Cora. I believe it's Cora. Yeah, Cora, Supergirl in the next episode. I'm guessing. I'm not 100% sure, obviously, but that's going to be my guess right now. But let me know what you guys thought about this episode down in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you not? And why? And as always, if you like the content you see, please make sure to like and subscribe down below. Other than that, this is going to be Beastly Eel signing out. Have a great night.